Hey, it's Randy. I have been meaning to do one of these for a while, especially now that I have a better microphone. A common question I get lately involves the webcomic Penny and Aggie. Penny and Aggie was a teen drama comic. Started, I think, in 2004 and it ended a few weeks ago. It had been written by T. Campbell, who had also written the comic Fans, and now also co-writes the comic Gilded Age. And originally, the artist and the co-creator was Jigsaw Legacy, who previously had been known for the comic Cool Cat Studio. Now does Eerie Cuties, the adult comic Menage a Trois, whatever. I'm an ugly American. Uh, a few years back, she stopped drawing Penny and Aggie, and Jason Waltrip took over all art duties. The reason why I get questions about it is because of my tenuous connection to the comic through a character named Helen. And I did two different guest weeks for Penny and Aggie. I did one, it must have been 2005, a storyline called The Omega Sisters. And I think I did the next one 2 years later, both centered on the character Helen, who is kind of the class misfit. And then she ended up in SP years later. And it's interesting because what happened was in 2004, T. Campbell, late 2004, T put out a kind of a call looking for guest artists, not guest writers. He just needed artists so Giselle could have some time off and give her a break because she does a lot. And I kind of made a passing comment about something else about doing it, and he emailed me, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" It's kind of interesting to play with someone else's toys, especially they weren't guest strips per se. I mean, they were, but I wasn't writing them. I was only drawing what was given. And the original agreement was that my strips would be printed and one of the Penny Aggie monthly titles. At that point in time, Penny Aggie wasn't just a webcomic; it was also a monthly title. And I would receive like a small percent, like a really tiny, which I didn't care. It's more of I just wanted to do it for the hell of doing it. And T sent me the script for Omega Sisters, and the idea of Omega Sister was the comic focused on Penny and Aggie. Penny being the blonde, popular girl. I wouldn't say affluent. Her father at least was a little more blue collar, but definitely kind of the popular kid. And Aggie was the art school to be girl, very much a hippie, very much an activist, and they had a long running rivalry. And of course there are other characters in that universe, the popular kids and kind of the artsy kids who stand up to them, but you really didn't see a lot of the other kids, and he wanted to kind of expand that the Penny Aggie world by showing some of the kids who didn't really run in either group. And this was a group of three girls who I guess called themselves the Omega Sisters. Because I guess they're the last ones. Um, the girls were Helen, who is the narrator of the story, and the focal point, but definitely not even the leader in this group. She is mousy, desperate for attention, will do anything to be accepted, very lonely, kind of upsetting. And then you had Tharka, who is a much heavier girl, doesn't give a shit about what people think about her, which at first kind of seems cool until you find in she's really just kind of as backbiting as anyone else. And the girl named Charlotte, who was very religious, very pushy, very in the original script, kind of holier than thou and snide. And I was given the chance to design these characters, which was kind of exciting and kind of neat uh, because T had intended for them to be ongoing characters. And the original, I wish I still had the art from when I worked on it. The original art, Tharka kind of always changed, stay the same. She was based heavily off of a girl I'd known in junior high and high school. Um, Partly because I designed her before I read the last page and I found out that Tharka was just as bad as everyone else. So that was kind of disappointing. But this is a girl who definitely didn't care about what people thought about her. She, did her best to make herself happy and be healthy, but your opinions just didn't matter, which I kind of respected. The original version of Charlotte had long hair, a long braid. She was based off. I knew a lot of Pentecostal kids growing up, and again, based off someone I had briefly known and didn't really like. And had nothing to do with them being Pentecostal, but I remember she always used. She had decided that she was of the true chosen people, and I don't know why I locked her hair short and gave her kind of a bob. I think it was because of someone else I had known who always kept their hair short because they were worried. Back when I was a Christian as like a teenager, um, this girl kept her hair short because she was worried. Well, I knew quite a few girls that did, but one who I'd met a few times, and her big thing was she kept it short because she was worried if she grew it long, it would incite vanity, and I always thought it was kind of weird. But I kind of put that trait in Charlotte, unspoken. And then the original idea I had for Helen was going to be based off of a girl I knew in junior high who was kind of everyone picked on her. Her nickname, typical really shitty things other kids call. Mainly she's picked on by the preps, but also the jocks. Um, and they, gave her crap for her looks, but she wasn't ugly. She just didn't look like a very popular kid. And she had a little bit of a temper. She didn't handle being bullied well, and I think that made her more of a target, which is unfair. But I always liked her, and I always got along with her, and I always like to think she's somewhere doing really well for herself. But I originally had kind of designed Helen to be this kind of very rail thin, mousy, thick glasses girl, kind of oilyish hair that was kind of tight to her head. And in the script, it talks about from Big Sisters in the first or the second strip. Helen's recalling childhood friendships, and now that they're in high school, how those all dissolved. And in the instructions, T said these are characters in the very first strip. They're Penny's other friends who would later get more um, background in the comic. But at the time, they hadn't really been used very much. And I was looking at the first strip, trying to figure out how they looked as children, and I noticed in the very first strip in Penny and Aggie, there is a girl who Penny's kind of giving the slide to, and it's something about Justin Timberlake because it's 2004. And this girl kind of walks off dejected, just real thick glasses and kind of wavy hair. And I decided that I wanted that girl to have more than one strip, so I scrapped my design and made that Helen. Which, at the time seemed like a great idea. The problem was I didn't color the strips. They were going to be black and white. They were going to be printed that way. So when it took me a long time, way longer than it should have, to get the strips done. I sent them to T, and by the time they got them, they were going to, put them in print, and then I guess their contract fell apart. I can't remember if it was the third or fourth issue that the story was supposed to appear in, and that was, of course, the issue that got canceled. So T was going to put them on the web, and the person who colored them gave Helen the mousy brown hair, which of course made her look much more like Davin. And that was awkward. So I never had anything to say. I always imagined her being blonde, but like almost a really like silver blonde. But how it happens. And I'm almost at 10 minutes, so I'm not going to go into the rest of it. I guess I'll do a part two involving Helen and why Helen ended up in SP and my general opinion of the character. Fun times. Bye.